Greetings, everyone. I wanted to do a little show about why I put Orage's commentary up. I have recorded it before and just had it up as an audio, but someone was asking me why I didn't have it on YouTube. So I re-recorded it, which was great fun and helped me to, well, every time you read these kinds of writings or literature, or is it literature, you always get something new from it. And reading those commentaries again made me look at how I've progressed in the Gurdjieff work, how I've not progressed in other ways. It helped me to understand why some of the exercises I've been doing weren't working, and made me re-look at them and redo them again in a new way. Orage has a way of explaining the Gurdjieff work that, sometimes it's difficult to get from reading Gurdjieff's books because we're not attending Gurdjieff's talks. We're not actually at his groups at the Priory or in New York or when he was holding them in various places around the world. We're too late for all that. And it's quite different reading the books to actually being there with him. So this is why I find it interesting to read what other people who are actually in Gurdjieff's presence, how they developed, how they learned. They had that advantage of being with the man, feeling his vibrations, being taught from the first source, him, Gurdjieff himself, where we're learning it through the books, and hopefully some of you have found groups to join, or perhaps even esoteric schools. But this is, further down the road. This isn't people. I don't think many people are around today that actually knew Gurdjieff. Maybe a handful. Well, actually, no, maybe there's a few more than that. So we're getting it like third hand, fourth hand. So I wanted to read Orage's commentary again because I had a few people asking me questions that I was finding difficult to answer, and for some reason I got drawn to Orage's commentary. I've been talking about Orage with a few people lately, that we need to get him out there more and direct people to his writings. And I know that in his history, obviously he's talked about a lot in the Life is Real Only Then When I Am book by Gurdjieff, and there can be some debate as to whether Orage was doing the work originally because, well, there was some confusion as to what was going on in America, and Gurdjieff had to come over there, and he broke up all the groups and made everybody sign that they would no longer be taught by Orage, and even Orage himself signed that. But to find that true story, you need to read Life is Real Only Then When I Am. But then Orage from that learned something so that he could still continue to do the work and still continue to give groups. And the commentary on Beelzebub was written down, notes collected by C.S. Knott, who again has written some great books about his time in the Gurdjieff work, and I highly recommend them as well. But reading the commentary, as I was saying to you, made me re-look at what I was doing, and sometimes we need a little nudge to make sure that we're doing the work in the correct way, or whether we're not doing enough of one thing and too much of another thing. I know there used to be a problem with, apparently, with the British, that we were concentrating too much on self-remembering when we should be doing other exercises as well. But because Orage has such a knowledge of so many things, he could turn that knowledge into wisdom. He gave up his whole old way of life when he discovered Gurdjieff, and he talks about that in the commentary. But I wanted to read a little bit from C.S. Knott that wasn't in the commentary. This was in one of the chapters, the second chapter. So this is Knott talking about going to a meeting. We would go to the meeting tired after a long day's work, but by the end of the evening, so much energy had been generated that instead of going home, we would adjourn to a child's restaurant and chew keva until very often 2 a.m. And the child's restaurant in New York, that's where Gurdjieff used to hang out as well when he was there and have meetings. Restaurants used to stay like late, open late in those days, and you could sit and talk and order coffee and chew keva as they're talking here. But this is one of the things I had to be reminded about whilst rereading the commentaries. I wasn't creating the right energy in myself recently. I was tired a lot. So I was misusing energy. But by reading the commentary again, it reminded me of what I should have been doing, the exercises I should have been doing, and noting where I was losing energy. Which is why I find it very important to read these kinds of writings from the people that were there with Gurdjieff, because they've got, like I was saying, the direct source. And sometimes we do go off track. We think we've been working on ourselves. And I've said before, sometimes you need to have a little pause and let things ponder inside. But sometimes that pause can go on for too long, I suppose is what I'm saying, and you forget to continue to do the work or come back to it. But let me continue. So we're talking about A R Orage. He knew a great deal of what went on behind the scenes in public and literary affairs. He could also divine what was going on behind our own facade or facade. He seemed to know us. He seemed to know the answer to every question. His replies were so right that many of us got into the habit of talking everything over with him, mundane problems as well as psychological ones. In the beginning, this helped very much, but some of the weaker ones came to rely on him entirely and consulted him on everything. And this was something I was thinking about when I was reading all this again or rereading it. It's very hard to find the right people to get answers to your questions to. Sometimes we get stuck in our questions because we're not getting the answers that we want. So we're not moving on. So if we can't get a question answered, I feel that sometimes we need to just put that question to one side and try something else, a new approach, and maybe that question will come to you. I've always been a believer of that. If you put the question out there, the answer will come. But maybe that answer is not coming because you don't need that answer yet. You need to do something else, maybe. So, right then, let's go on. In the beginning, this helped very much, but some of the weaker ones came to rely on him entirely and consulted him on everything. With all his knowledge, he was a warm human being with human weaknesses and defects, striving to perfect himself. And this is something I do notice with people. I've spoken to many people about Gurdjieff over the years, people that have come to the Gurdjieff work, and then they get very disappointed in the personality of perhaps Gurdjieff, or disappointed in the personality of Ouspensky. They go on about his later years, whatever. That personality isn't important. You've not met them people to know what they were really like, or how they were acting, or why they were being like that. So we can't judge them on what the gossip is or the hearsay. We should be judging them for the work that they're giving us, the writings and the teachings, because there's gems in their teachings. But I understand that. I remember when I started out in all the work, whether it was Blavatsky or Steiner or Gurdjieff, I wanted to know about the person first. And maybe I was quite good at being able to take away from it all the gossip and seeing them gems that are in the work. But I do see a lot of people are very stuck on the hearsay and the gossip of that person. So they feel they're not perfect, so they shouldn't be listening to them. It's very difficult to find someone that is perfect. If anyone knows someone who is perfect, I would like to know who that person is. I've never met a perfect person. I can't think of anyone in history that is perfect in any way. Maybe the Christ, but that's, that was the man Jesus who became the Christ. He was given the Christ impulse to do the Christ work. So that's a different thing, but we shouldn't be putting people on pedestals. And I wanted to finish with this a little bit. As he said, he himself was learning by working with us. He needed us as we needed him. He took from Gurdjieff as he understood the teaching and stood in relation to Gurdjieff as we did to him. We were impatient to know more and more, and were sometimes annoyed that the teaching was not handed out on a plate, complete with explanations. And that's another thing I get from a lot of people. They want it all on a plate, no effort being put in, no work being done. They want easy explanations. Gurdjieff work explained in 2 sentences. Well, that's impossible. Those that are serious about this work know you need to put effort in and work upon yourselves. It's an ongoing path throughout your life. Watching.